Hello! Hello! And welcome to this Purple Journal podcast. I skipped the edition. It's the Hush Hush edition, as I have been told. People I think the quote was, anyone with earphones, their ears bleed at the beginning of these shows, because I'm so excited about this Vikings team.
They should just wait until the Vikings lose, and then the volume will be very reasonable.
Happy now? Is this what you wanted? But no, this is pretty much a get right edition, I would say also. Of the Purple Journal podcast. I am Joe Johnson. You are familiar with me because I'm everywhere, apparently. I am here with Joe Oberly, who is everywhere across the globe. He's a jet setter.
Yes. Add something new to my introduction.
What, the jet setter? Or do you have another amazing?
Yeah. I'm the I write for all those places, but I'm the golf course record setting Joe Oberly.
Oh, at that new course you were talking about?
Yeah, I was out at Braemar yesterday, and they had scheduled an event beforehand, before this small outing that I was with, and they got rained out, so we were the first people to play the course, and I was the first person in the first group to putt out on 18, so that officially became a record. I held it for 15 seconds when the next guy putted out, but hey, it's in the books, right?
Yeah, we should put a statue somewhere in the woods off 18 of you.
But you can't ask any more questions like what I shot, because none of the other details are available.
They're lost to history.
Yeah. Yes.
Joe writes for Purple PTSD and Vikings Territory. He does write for the Sports Post as well. And Luke Braun is here too.
Yo.
How you doing, man?
Doing good.
Do you have any course records, Luke? Just curious.
Absolutely not. I'm horrible at golf. I've never broken 100.
I can say with zero exaggeration that Minnetonka, we had a tournament there my senior year, and I after 10 you can pick up your ball. I picked up on every hole, so that's got to be a record.
Well, my record didn't last too long because I was playing with Joe Stansbury, who's a very prolific local amateur golfer and pro, who's won all kinds of tournaments. And I said to him after 3 holes, I said, "Do you mean if I putt out first, I would hold the course record?" And he said, "Yes." And we have to make that. We have to make that happen. So that was pretty cool. So I would shout out Joe Stansbury for that.
And South High School at the time, I don't know anymore, they had a lot of like individual golfers in my age that went to state and placed. So they would just put me with the other team's best golfer because I was so bad that I would lower their scores just by being an irritating person. So that was like a mole. Luke writes for Purple PTSD, Vikings Territory, and he also co-hosts the Climbing the Pocket podcast over on the the Pocket Protectors podcast on the Climbing the Pocket network. There's so many shows.
I wish I were a co-host on the Climbing the Pocket podcast. Those guys would be fun.
I want to be friends with regular Randy. I'm going to make that happen. I've made it clear. I'm sliding in his DMs later tonight.
I think you guys have pretty similar opinions.
Yeah. When he and I were the only two talking about Zimmer on the hot seat, I knew I found a soulmate. How do you guys feel though about I spend perhaps too much time, as we established last show, kind of dwelling in the negative areas of Vikings fandom, and I think the best way to explain the game before we get into some of the news was we did and Luke was there for the first ever commentary show, the Why God commentary show, and we had some pretty bleak assessments at halftime. We only did the first half, and it was kind of like, I think the Vikings are going to win.
Yeah, we were like, oh, this is gross.
Yeah, I might delete that from the internet forever. But yeah, it wasn't. The second half was great. They came out firing. It looked at the end like a great game, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't really that much of a get-right game, at least not the entire time. I don't know. How do you guys feel about the Vikings right now, I guess is my question.
You mean as far
They're
as
hitting their stride.
Yeah, I mean, do you feel like, are they getting like to where we thought they'd be, or are they still deeply like troubled at certain positions?
I mean, I don't think they blew any coverages, which is nice. The Eagles game, they blew one, and Wendell Smallwood dropped it. And then this game, they gave up a couple deep completions, but that wasn't blowing coverages and somebody running the wrong way. That was like, oh, Harrison Smith got beat by a tight end at the catch point, which sucks, but that's a much less concerning problem.
What's kind of interesting today out at TCO, they peppered these guys once again with this question of, on the defense, are you back to where you used to be? The one that Harrison Smith rankled at. But Anthony Barr was speaking, and he said, and they asked him what happened, and he said once again they simplified the defense, really got back to just doing stuff that we knew, and then we just played so we could react and respond rather than constantly thinking, if this is going to happen, I got to be here, blah blah blah. He said sometimes when you have all the off season, you have all this opportunity and time to think up great ideas. They don't always come out land them, and there's a big portion of that where they're getting back to what they did last year, and that they get to play football rather than do something different and be overthinking it, as Zimmer put it a couple weeks ago. So.
Did you, when you mentioned Harrison Smith, did he just not like the way the question was phrased?
Well, I don't know. He just said he's getting tired of hearing that. Or are we back to last year? Because it says last year was a completely different year. This is a new year. They're not going to be the same. So quit expecting it to be. Is basically what he was saying. You got new personnel. You got new things you're doing. You got it's not going to be the same. So don't look for. I guess he didn't say all this, but I would say don't look for us to be the dominating. Lights out yardage defense that they were in 2017. They got something else going, and this is who they are. So.
And I guess
that's kind of what I wanted them to do. I talked about it last week, and I was like, just play your game. They're not good enough to beat you when you just play the style of defense that you play. That's exactly what they did. They rolled coverages. They got Josh Rosen throwing a dumb pass, and it was like this easy interception for Ant Harris to jump. They they caught him in the wrong protection a whole bunch and got a bunch of free sacks out of it. That's their game. And that ended up being like the reason that the Cardinals couldn't move the ball at all. Yeah. I think that against a rookie quarterback with a bad offensive line like Arizona, you can just do that and win.
So what you're saying is that against better teams that might not be enough?
Yeah, if you're up against a quarterback that can read the field quickly and punish you for those kinds of things, or who can read a blitz coming quickly even though their pre-snap read was wrong, that's the kind of thing that like the Aaron Rodgerses can do. That's going to be like you're not going to get away with that against Tom Brady. But right now they could just pretty much play straight up defense and just rest on the fact that they were better than the Cardinals, which is a sound strategy when you have a bad team at home.
So yeah, that's a good. I mean, that kind of ties back into the original question, being like, how confident are you in this team? Like, do you think that maybe they just needed to get back to their roots and then maybe they can expand on it defensively? Or do you think when we end up playing Brady in Foxborough in a couple weeks that it might not end up going so well?
Well, I don't think anybody does that well against Brady in Foxborough.
Yeah.
I mean, they put up, 30 points on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs? But 40, I think, actually.
Yeah, 43-40, I think was the final.
Yeah. So, Brady in Foxborough is going to be a challenge no matter how good you are. But I think, the last 2 weeks, if you looked at the last 2 weeks, these look like the Vikings we recognize. I think if you look at the season as a whole, you've still got this nasty Bills loss. You've got this really bad performance against the Rams. But I think you're kind of starting to get to a point where you can stack up these better performances and kind of prove to the world that you aren't the team that lost, to the Bills and then the Rams in 5 days. You're the team that went into Lincoln Financial and beat the Eagles and then took care of business against the Cardinals at home.
Yeah, and and we'll get into this, but the reality is that the defense doesn't need to be the defense from last year for this team to be successful. It would be amazing if they were, and hopefully they'll stay healthy. I don't know if, Joe, you had any final thoughts on that, but I wanted to get into the injury news, the Mike Hughes stuff.
Nope, go ahead.
Yeah, that was a little brutal to watch. You know, I haven't been the biggest Hughes guy. Obviously, I wanted more linemen, but he's been playing well, and second year in a row that we've lost the number 1 pick to an ACL, so that sucks. But,
same yard line. It's cursed.
Yeah, there you go. Got to find that.
The person that wrote that even tried to say they brought in the Blair Walsh 27-yard field goal into it. It's like all of a sudden there's this 27 curse. Well, hello, if it's a 27-yard field goal, then it's on the 17th-yard line. So
yeah.
Stop it.
No, it's that we drafted a player named Curse and gave him number 27.
Oh no. We
thought of that one.
We solved it.
I hadn't thought of that one.
We solved it.
We need to trade him away to the Eagles. They need a safety.
Yeah, someone else get this Curse.
Pronounce his name differently. Kearse.
What do you guys think about the injury as it impacts the rest of the team? Like, who do you think has this? Obviously, Mackenzie Alexander comes to mind. Holton Hill is a guy that got a lot of camp hype. He's played a little bit. He's a bigger body too.
They're all gonna get some. They're gonna get some action. You know, they're gonna start funneling bodies through. I mean, they've already started the promotion machine about Mackenzie Alexander saying, yeah, he's been playing pretty good. He did have a pretty good game against the Cardinals, but even
pretty much went toe to toe with Larry Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Yeah.
And didn't Larry Fitzgerald step on Hughes' toes, which caused him to wreck his ACL?
So here's something fun. So I was talking to my dad who's at the game, and the broadcast didn't catch this, and I didn't really see anybody else catch this, but after the kickoff that ended the second half, you know, they kicked the field goal with like 7 seconds to go and then did a dumb kickoff that didn't go anywhere, and then the half ended.
Yeah.
Mike Hughes limped off the field after that. And then, so my conspiracy is that he got hurt on that play and then went out and tried to gut it out, and that's why, you know, then when he tried to plant on it, it just gave.
There were some reports to that after the game that he had originally gotten hurt earlier and kept playing, and I don't know that he tore his ACL on that play. I think that, you know, where his leg jammed into the carpet on the 27-yard line.
Yeah, something had happened that kind of loosened it. And then it gave on that.
Maybe his MCL went first.
But yeah, you're going to see, you were seeing at slot, you were seeing Mackenzie Alexander, Mike Hughes, and J-Ron Curse rotate, and now it's just Alexander and Curse. But Curse has actually been really efficient in the slot. I'm actually kind of excited to see what he can do with more snaps. He's been able to cover tight ends when they line up in the slot, which has been a problem. He's been, like, by far of those three, the most efficient. He's been the hardest to complete passes on. He's been the least targeted on a per-snap basis. He's just been the best slot corner. So I'm excited to see if that continues, because that would be extremely valuable to be able to go big nickel, and everybody's speedy 5'10" slot corners. If Curse can keep up, you're never going to complete a pass when the guy's got 6 inches on you.
He got asked that today. If you know who are you going to get some of that time? And he lit up with a big smile and then dodged it, saying, "I'm just going to keep working and preparing as hard as I can, do what I get." You know. So, but he had a big smile on his face when they asked him that. So. I bet he's licking his chops a little bit to hopefully get in there.
It's a great opportunity for him.
Is that something that Curse has done, like, historically, like? Or
it's out of nowhere. He's
not in college or
safety.
Not even in college. Wow.
No, he's like a box safety. He's 6'4". Putting him in at nickel is wild, but he's been pretty good at it. So yeah, let's ride this. Let's see how good he actually is.
Ooh, addition by subtraction. I'll take it. I'm no longer sad inside about anything.
I don't think it's addition by subtraction. Mike Hughes was playing pretty well. He was making rookie mistakes, but he was doing all right. He was looking really promising, and it really sucks that you're going to have to kind of delay him for a year, just like you did with Dalvin Cook. But I think of all the like ACL tear to a starter injuries that could happen, this is one that you can at least weather a little bit, just because you've got Mackenzie Alexander and you've got another kind of surprise player that can play slot. Like, you can deal with it, but it still sucks.
Yeah, they have plenty of depth in the secondary this year, like they've never had in the past. I mean, you've mentioned most of the names, but it's. I feel pretty. You've got George Igaloka that's going to start getting more and more time, and of course he's filling in for Zendejo. But I think you're exactly right, Luke. I'm just reiterating
having Iloka helps maybe justify having Curse play somewhere else too. If you didn't have that depth, maybe you couldn't do that. I don't know.
Right. If Curse weren't playing nickel, Curse wouldn't be active on like game days with all these safeties, right? Like unless you really wanted him to be a punt gunner, which he is excellent at, so maybe he would be.
Do you expect to see more Holton Hill then too, or what's his?
I do.
Yeah, if Waynes and Rhodes need to miss more snaps, which is pretty common, then I think you get Holton Hill out there, unless they want to kick Mackenzie Alexander outside, which I think would be a good idea, but they've shown very little willingness to do that, and I think they'd rather put in Holton Hill.
Why do you think it's a good idea?
Oh, he was excellent there in college, and then they moved him to the slot where he struggled, but he's played in his entire career, he's played his best football on the outside by far.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. They brought David Perry back, too, which was nice, just because he got that sack against Green Bay, and then he was gone, like, a couple hours later. What's going on with Linval Joseph then? Like, I saw the injury. I saw, it looked kind of bad, and then he came back out, and he's missed practice this week. Joe, have you gotten any, like... I saw an article about Jaleel Johnson prepping to take over for him, and how he was praising him and saying it's an impossible shoes to fill or whatever, which might have been on Vikings.com, which made me feel like maybe Joseph's going to miss a couple games, but I couldn't really find anything definitive.
Nope, he wasn't anywhere near the locker room, and Jaleel was, but some people talked to him. But yeah, I don't know what's going on. I don't even know what play and when it happened, or when I saw it on your agenda, I said, "What? I didn't even know about this." So you're asking the wrong guy.
Yeah, he was
on the
late.
Injury report. Yeah, he was on the injury report today. He didn't practice with an ankle, knee, and shoulder injury.
Ugh.
So we'll see.
Yeah, it happened so late in the game too, which makes you think, like, Christ. Dalvin Cook too, I think people were surprised he didn't play last week. I think I read that his hamstring started acting up in the pregame, so they decided to sit him. Soft tissue injuries are a bitch because they're so unpredictable. You guys got any? What do you feel about Dalvin Cook? Do you think they should wait, considering Murray's day? Or I know, Luke, you were looking into some of the Murray stuff too.
He'll play on Sunday. They got to get him back playing. I mean, he's missed how many games last year, and he's already missed more than half this year, well more than half. And they got to get the guy out there and get him back playing football. So I think he was really close last Sunday, really close to playing. They just thought, not quite there, so let's not do it. So I think after a week of practice, and he was a full participant in today's practice. So
okay.
He'll be out there.
Yeah, he should be out there unless there's a setback.
Yeah, I have Leonard Fournette and Le'Veon Bell as my two running backs in our league, so I'm a little tired of contracts and hamstrings. It's like, God Christ. But yeah, Luke, I know you looked into, and you haven't finished it yet, so I'm sorry if I'm spoiling your entire thing, but I wanted to talk about the run game a little bit. I wonder, the question is, were they successful because they had the luxury to force it against Arizona, or did they impose their will a little bit, or what?
That's
happened?
A lot. The second one, I think, is a better description of what happened. They just won. I hate these narratives of they ran more frequently, therefore it worked. That's not how this works. You have to still make your blocks and win, which is what happened. Pat Elflein made a bunch of great. The whole interior line actually had a really nice day in the run game, which is great because that's a lot of maligned players. Brian O'Neill had a couple of really just flashy pancakes. But I think the real, if you were going to do a game ball in the run game, it goes to David Morgan. He was just flying around the field. He was killing defensive ends. He was
unsung hero.
I'm singing him on the Murray touchdown. he was basically the key blocker. But basically, I'm going to write a piece. It'll probably, if you're listening to this on Thursday or Friday, it'll probably be available at Purple PTSD, so you should go check it out. Hoping to finish it tonight. But I took every successful run play, which I defined using Ben Baldwin's definition, which is half the yards on first and second down and all the yards on third and fourth down. So did you get half of it or convert, basically? And I took all of those plays, of which there were 12, which is nice.
Wow.
And I'm going to break them down and kind of just describe why they worked. If you want to see the end zone views of those, you can go to my Twitter moments. There's a moment that has just GIFs of all of it. So you can see every successful play from that angle, and you can really just watch through those. You can see Elflein just moving people over, just burying people. You can see Remmers swallow a guy. You can see Compton make excellent blocks.
You mentioned Compton a few times during the live stream in the first half, too, saying he had
a nice game.
Yeah, seemed like it.
I think I jokingly tweeted Tom Compton is our best lineman, which is becoming less of a joke. But I mean, he's been really consistent all year of all the people, which is really funny because if you drafted a guard, he's the one who would have been replaced.
Yeah.
And that's how high of an impact is that going to have? Because he's been reasonable. So, but yeah, I think it was just a lot of really good execution in the run game and some kind of a couple of really interesting play concepts too. Like there were a couple of times when if they had the Cardinals in zone defense, Treadwell would motion inside, and that would bring the cornerback into the box. But because it's zone, the cornerback still lines up far enough away where he's not threatening the run. So you basically just added a blocker without having to add a defender, which is dope. And that formation was used on the touchdown run, the Latavius Murray touchdown run, and then another really important run near the end of the game as they were icing it. And there's some other really interesting run stuff that they did, which I think is just well-designed plays, and then people hitting their blocks. That's how you do it.
They won't have as much success this week since they're playing against the 31st ranked rush defense in Arizona now. The Jets are a little bit better. They're ranked 17th, but they're 22nd against the pass. So you may see a more unbalanced offensive attack again. I mean, hopefully they will try. Hopefully they will try and keep establishing the running game and build off of what they did last week. But it's going to be a little tougher road to hoe in New York and all those fans screaming at them.
Yeah, the Jets have the 9th ranked run defense via Pro Football Focus grade. And it does bear mentioning, that the Cardinals being bad had a lot to do with it too, especially Benson, I think Matoya, their defensive end, had a really, really rough day. Robert Condice had a rough day, and Antoine Bethea got stiff-armed for the touchdown, and his day only went downhill from there. He got just posterized by a number of Vikings.
It reminded me of AP a little bit. But how do you feel, and this is such a hard question because there's such limited tape, but how do you feel bringing Cook back might change the run game or even the pass game a little bit?
Screens. Yeah. They haven't been running them, and I think Dalvin Cook allows you to run them.
Yeah.
It opens up a few things that I don't think they feel very comfortable throwing to Boone and Thomas, who would be your guys to do that, because Latavius Murray is kind of notoriously not that effective of a pass catcher. He's fine. He can take a ball and run it up, but he's not the kind of guy that, get him in space and he can be explosive like Cook is or like the other guys are. But Boone and Thomas have had drop issues and
that fumble a week ago.
Right, that fumble, and they had some issues in the preseason and stuff. So I don't think they've felt comfortable whipping those plays out. However, there's kind of this weird advantage to that, because if you don't run screens for 4 games, then the team that you're playing is scouting those 4 games and going, they don't run screens.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you can whip screens out against them, and they'll be caught off guard. So there's this weird kind of chess match to it, where if you just kind of hold screens in your pocket till week 10, and then suddenly all these late game teams are scouting that you don't run screens, and then you can do that on them. It's this kind of chess game.
they're probably scouting personnel as well, and so they see if Dalvin Cook comes back, like you just said, he's more of a pass catching back, so they would anticipate that. I don't think they'd have got too much.
I think some teams would, and I don't think all teams are smart enough.
Okay.
I don't think Mike McCoy would have been smart enough, and he got thoroughly outdone.
It's about time.
Yeah, if you wanted to like chalk this win up to anything, it's that coaching. The Vikings just like outcoached them at every turn. They just were always one step ahead on offense and defense.
Yeah, and I think the first half kind of, without Cousins fumbling that ball, it would have been, I think we would have felt a little less at halftime. That's, we've talked about that a lot so far this season. It's a problem that, like you said last week, Luke, was probably not going to go away because at this point in his career, it's just something that happens to him. But it would be so nice if they could somehow fix that, because that's going to be a huge issue.
And now they can add pass.
People should just. Yeah, right. Get Rashad Hill off the field. That's one thing.
That is that was your juiciest take of the first half. Not to keep going back to that game, but you were saying that he was playing at a benchable level, which I happen to agree with.
He's been benchable since the Saints playoff game. He's just not a very good. He's a backup tackle.
So what do you chalk that up to? Like, just the coaches are being stubborn?
Yeah, hubris.
I mean, Rashad Hill. Well, they don't have a left tackle right now because what's his name?
Sure, they do. He's playing right guard.
Ooh.
I'm sorry.
They've got their left tackle playing right guard, and they won't change it because of hubris.
Okay. Well, I did predict before the league or before the season that Brian O'Neill was going to start at right tackle, but it was just a few games later, and it came about because of injury. But he is he's starting to play well, and he's doing.
Yeah, he might have earned that. He might not look back now. You might be he might not be earning starts because of injury anymore.
Right, I think so. It's and that's where Rashad's got to be concerned, because Reef comes back and there's nowhere for him to go. He'll be sitting on the side.
I mean, yeah, if you showed me tape of number 75 and number 69 and told me one of them was a rookie, I wouldn't say it was Brian O'Neill.
What do you attribute that to, though? Like, you guys saw a lot of him in camp, and he had to obviously put on some weight, but it like the stuff that I read about camp, and then or like his O'Neill, his like Senior Bowl game, I think he was like just awful. Like he was only successful like 27% of the time.
He was maybe the worst tackle at the Senior Bowl.
And so, Joe, you're chalking it up to just sheer athletic ability?
Part of it is he put on weight, but I don't know how much that contributes to it. Helps, but I mean, I think he was I thought, you coming in, he's an athlete. He's a tight end. He played tight end. He can move, and that's going to help you once you learn how, you're blocking in the he learns the position, then he learns the NFL game. I mean, that's why I figured eventually he was going to win that position, because I just thought he had what it takes. But as soon as he, maybe matches up against bigger guys, he'll have more trouble, or bigger, faster guys. But right now he's starting to grow into the position, and I just felt more of a gut than anything. Luke probably has some numbers behind it, but.
I have more technique stuff about it. I mean, I think a lot of it has to be chalked up to coaching. As maligned as the staff is for the way they've handled the O-line, you have to also give them credit for taking a guy who was very raw coming out of college. And the reason that he did so poorly at the Senior Bowl, and the reason that people didn't believe in him, was because they saw all these technique flaws on his tape. They saw weird footwork, difficulty anchoring, which is still an issue, but far less of one than we thought it would be. They saw, hand issues. Like, they saw poor technique, which is not bearing out in the NFL. That means the coaches got a hold of him and taught him the right way to do it. And that's a huge, awesome accomplishment. And you also have to give credit to O'Neill himself for working his butt off to gain the weight and to get better.
Yeah.
I get that sense from him that he was, he got so many questions about his weight. And you look at him, and he was starting to bristle early on. Says, I'm just going to, you can tell he was a guy he was going to work to do it. And, he was dodging interviews today, so he already knows he's the shit. So
how quickly they change.
Yeah.
And I hated that pick. I was aggressively angry at our day 2 draft party. My mood suddenly shifted. But I'll be happy. I mean, not, you know, I don't know. I don't want to say I'll be happy to be wrong because I just didn't like the pick. But that's the news that I needed to hear. Because I remember specifically Luke saying, "Let me talk you off the ledge," like, what, 2-3 months ago? And you said Brian O'Neill will contribute this season. And I said, well, that would be, if that happened, that'd be amazing. So I'll eat my crow.
Yeah, I was right with you in our post-draft. I thought, I was like, oh my God, we've got a player who's not going to be good for 2 years.
Yeah.
But he's come along a lot better than really everybody thought.
Not
That's
me.
great.
That was my hot take.
Yeah, Joe's take. Joe's been sitting there feeding him hot dish after practices, fattening him up just to make sure he'd be right.
Well, you figure, yeah, once hot dish gets added to the equation, that's 20
Yeah,
pounds.
at least. It's a freshman 50 in Minnesota. At least for this guy. Adam Thielen, best wide receiver in the NFL, talk all week this week, which I thought was amazing, just based on his story. I'm sure he'd be the last person in the world to even make that argument himself. I did find it odd that the Cardinals decided to take Diggs out of the game and as opposed to Thielen. There was one play where he was lined up against a linebacker where, Luke, you mentioned, like, what are they? Why is Thielen going against a linebacker?
That's a mistake. That's not the plan. That's Steve Wilkes allowing that to happen and should be reprimanded for doing so.
Yeah, I think that whole coaching staff might end up being reprimanded.
Does Diggs have the chance to burn you deeper more often than and Thielen's going to get a lot of his stuff, you know, across the middle, shorter underneath passes. You know, he can get you deep. There's no question. Don't get me wrong, but you know, more of the stuff he's more of Kirk Cousins. You know, safety valve, always knows where he is and where to find him. Where Diggs is your burner, so you maybe take away the quick strike and figure, you know, Thielen will, you know, 1,000 cuts to death yet, which he eventually did.
Yeah, I'm sure they would rather have the chunk yardage or first downs than like 2, 50-yard touchdowns. It's probably the pick their poison.
I don't know if teams have that. I don't know if teams have that much of a choice because most teams have their best corner is an outside corner, and when you line up Thielen in the slot all day and your best corner can't play slot. Patrick Peterson typically doesn't play the slot. He has in the past, but he doesn't often. And they didn't have him play in the slot, so Thielen was able to go up against Budda Baker, a safety, who also plays their slot corner and has been really troublesome. I mentioned that in the pregame, and it came to fruition. And they could also, move him around. On the touchdown where he was up against the linebacker, they actually lined him up closer to a tight end alignment, and the Cardinals didn't make any adjustments to that. They stayed in a Tampa 2 like Leslie Frazier style defense where the guy in that alignment gets manned up with the middle linebacker. Now you've got Thielen on a middle linebacker, and they had absolutely no ability to change that. So I think, if a defense isn't mobile enough, if they aren't smart enough to change all that stuff, then if you're John DeFilippo, yeah, you just line up Thielen on the inside all the time, and they can never put their best guy on you.
Yeah, I wonder, I was going to ask that, the DeFilippo thing, like how much of this is his scheme versus Shermer's lining him up maybe. I know Thielen lined up in the slot a lot last year, but are they just giving him different looks, or is Cousins just a better quarterback, or both?
I think they were able to get mismatches all day. I think I was going through this, and at some point, Thielen had 13 targets, and I think 8 of them were against non-corners. They were just getting mismatches all day, and Thielen was dusting people, and Cousins is a good enough quarterback to execute on that.
And I took the under. What a dumbass.
But, hey, credit to you. You did text me. I'm happy. I'm at the game, and I'm happy to be wrong. And I think that was before halftime.
Mm-hmm.
And I just picked up my over on Cousins at rushing at the very end, and I've probably never been happier as a human being.
It's really fun.
Speaking of him, he looked human. The first half wasn't the greatest show on turf-esque offense that we'd seen. But man, I don't know what happened at halftime, but that was like the best example of making adjustments or coming out firing on all cylinders. It seemed like a completely different offense when they came out. You got Cousins rushing for a touchdown, which no one saw coming. He was connecting
That
with
play
Thielen
was
everywhere.
nasty.
You want to talk? We should talk about that because that was the
Yeah, it was a
bulk of
triple
me
option.
being right.
So people were, so it was a read option is what most people saw. Like, the classic Colin Kaepernick play where you fake a handoff and then you watch the defensive end. And if the defensive end falls for it, and starts crashing in toward the running back, you keep the ball, you run to the outside of him, the end has no chance, which is what happened. And if he stays disciplined and he stays back, then you give it to the running back, and now he's wasted too much time being disciplined. He's been too patient, and you basically read the defensive lineman, and whatever he does, you do what makes him wrong. That's what makes the play work. But an added wrinkle into that, which didn't end up happening, but if you watch that play, you can see Adam Thielen running a bubble screen. So that was also an option available that probably, Cousins declined because the pre-snap alignment wasn't right, or, has the option to not do that for a bunch of reasons.
No,
That's why. Yeah, so he chose to keep it, which was right. The defensive end committed really hard to the run, and he could have started dead arm dancing at the 5 with the way Rudolph just destroys Antoine Bethea. He could have somersaulted his way in.
Yeah, and that dancing. Can we take a second just to talk about how amazing that dance
so
was?
bad.
Like every national person I saw talk about that were like, what are they doing? Which made it even better.
Do you know where it came from? I saw a deal where it apparently came from Thielen and some of his buddies.
In college?
Yes, they would go lift weights and they would do this dead arm thing or something like that, and they would do dances or something, and
they would try to convince people in bars to be like, this is the new hot dance, and get the whole bar doing
right.
it.
Okay, you saw it, yeah, that's right. And then so he brings it there, and so Thielen's Twitter got lit up after he started doing it because all his buddies were texting him and saying, the dead arm dance. So,
I thought for sure it was more of like a shower dance, maybe a post-shower dance, just based on other moving parts, but I guess that's a better story, your story, so I'll take it.
Aesthetically, such a disaster.
That's right up my alley. Me and my buddy used to create the stupidest dances known to man and force them on people. Still do. Separately, though. I'm a free agent. Any other thoughts on the Cardinals game? Bailey came through. That was nice. It's nice to not have to write a kicker's name on an agenda with, blood circling it.
Yes, I didn't even include that in my rap. I thought to myself later, he scored a few points, but I said, you know what? I didn't even think about him because he was just money. He was solid, and there was nothing to say. So it's what you expect from one of the most accurate kickers in NFL history. So it's a great signing for the Vikings.
Yeah, that's helps me cut down on my smoking, I'll tell you. What do you guys make of the Jets? They're this team that, and Joe, you wrote about this amazingly in your preview, that in strange ways are intertwined with the Vikings, despite the fact that outside of expansion teams, they're the team the Vikings have faced the least, I think, with 11.
Yeah. This will be the 11th time.
Okay.
2-8 against them right now. 2-8 against these guys in the history. So it's kind of weird that they just haven't had that many games against them, but and then I just wrote about the storylines that there are. Certainly Sheldon Richardson, who was on the team in 2016, and Cousins, who was almost on it in 2018, but never really was. And I just want to point this out really quick because this guy from the New York Post wrote this article that everybody's talking about that just is basically trying to light a bonfire underneath the Jets fans, to scream at their lungs out at Cousins for spurning them and not, leaving $6 million on the table and using them as leverage to go get more money out of the Vikings, because the Vikings put up this documentary on their website where Cousins was going through the whole free agent process, talking with his agent and all this stuff, and it made it sound like that's exactly what they did, and they were saying that was classless and clueless.
But I watched that documentary. I also read that article before people freaked out about it, and I was going to write a big piece about how stupid it was. But I watching the documentary, they didn't say the thing about the Jets that way. They just mentioned it as part of the history, saying like the Jets upped their offer, so we used that to get, because I wanted to come here anyway. It wasn't like he was. I think the article used like gloating or something. And it's like, that's not what he was doing. You know, it's such a.
It's the way it works.
Yes, and that article is such a transparent. Exactly what you said. The guy just wants the fans to be pissed off, and so the Vikings have this narrative. Then they also have that Sheldon Richardson narrative from 2 years ago, which is odd considering we play them on average once a decade. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Funny to hear him say when we were talking to him today, someone asked him if, if this was going to be a deal for him going back, a revenge game. And he says, it's not about me. I never put myself above the team. He says, if I have a vendetta against someone, it's just between me, he said. So dude, well, you have a vendetta? He goes, no. But it was the fact that he brings this up. It was just hilarious.
And he's like the last guy you would actually want to have a vendetta against.
That's
right. Which should be fun, especially considering, Everson's not going to be back. Linval's going to be out, so it's going to be his opportunity, him and Hunter, to, show their leadership a little bit, I guess. Stephen, yeah.
Tom Johnson.
I love Julio Johnson too. Do you guys know? Do you know why?
No, because he's the last name. No, I don't know.
No, he's a Big Ten player.
Oh.
I have to bring that up once a week, or I'll be beaten. Yeah. I mean, also just with the Jets thing, I don't think if the Jets weren't playing at the level they're playing right now, if they were, 5-1 or whatever, I doubt that article gets written, because a lot of it was about this upstart team and how good they're doing, despite the fact.
Three-game winning streak, and but I look at their schedule and this will only be the second team they've played that's currently got a winning record, so they haven't played that tough of competition yet. So
they beat the crap out of the Colts and Broncos in back-to-back weeks, which is not that impressive. I mean, it's impressive to beat NFL teams, and you can't take it too far, but there is a strength of schedule consideration here.
Yeah, that was my question. Was how good do you think they are?
They can score points. I mean, they put up 48 against the Lions opening weekend.
So I was actually looking into the Jets offense and how it was like winning and when it was losing and how that happened, and I realized that Sam Darnold has a much easier time throwing against man than zone. Which is kind of the classic rookie thing, He's accurate. He came out of school, was accurate, so I went third overall. So he can hit a spot. So when it's man coverage and you just need to hit a window, you can hit a window. And their receivers are pretty good. Jermaine Kearse and Robbie Anderson, and to a lesser extent Terrell Pryor. That's a reasonable core even after you lose Quincy Enunwa. That's a core of guys that you can really believe in. And they can create enough space, and the rookie can execute and hit it. But when it comes to zone, like all of his interceptions have come against either zone or because of random stupid crap like he threw across his body in that Lions game, and that was like some rookie crap or like a tip or whatever. But otherwise, like the vast majority of his worst throws have come when he's just locking onto a guy in zone and a defender, reads his eyes and jumps the route, which the Vikings are unbelievably aggressive and do that all the time. I was tweeting about this today, and I said, you should go with the same game plan you brought into the NFC Championship because it'll pay off this time. That aggressive thing, like they aren't going to get you got like the Eagles did. They are the kind of team that will fall victim to aggressive corner play. And if you just sit there and let them go man-to-man and try to just like win straight up like you did against Arizona, I actually think that their receivers can punish you for that.
Interesting.
I just had a flashback of Harrison Smith getting burned on a touchdown against the Eagles. I was like, oh no.
Painful.
It won't be a double move this time.
Yeah. It's
that would be interesting to see because wasn't that game plan, Luke, related to what the Vikings have been trying to do this year or not? The whole complication,
I think what they tried to do this year, which it appears that they've come back based on Barr's comments and Zimmer's comments and stuff, they've kind of dialed back on this. But I think they tried to like add more rules and considerations and kind of tried to, they have if the defense does, or if the offense does this, you do that. If the offense does that, you do this. Kind of rules for everything, so that you're theoretically always in the right place, and whatever they did, you have the answer for it. And I think they tried to add like more layers to that, and it just confused everyone. And then they started blowing coverages and like letting people get behind them and stuff. So I think they dialed that back, and that's why the defense has kind of settled down in the last 2 games. So if that's what you're asking, then no, I don't. That's not.
No, I guess I was trying to figure out what they were doing last year, if that had any relation to that. But it probably has. This is probably stuff Zimmer came up with over the summer. So
I'm sure the way the movie plays in my head is that he brings in DeFilippo for the interview. Like Joe, you said this last year. First and only question: what did you do to us in the NFC Championship game? And then Zimmer spent the rest of the offseason like the guy from A Beautiful Mind with a shed with all these connecting things, trying to create the world's perfect defense. Goes to training camp, says, hey, we got this, almost the same 11 starters from last year with a huge upgrade as the 11th guy. Let's do this crazy perfect defense I created, and it just melted everybody's brains. I'm writing that movie, by the way. It sounds about right.
But I think like the way that like this last week's interception happened, where Anthony Harris he jumped a route because he saw it coming the whole way. The defense rolled a coverage. Josh Rosen didn't see it coming, and Anthony Harris jumped the route, got a pick. I think that can happen a bunch against Sam Darnold. I don't think he's processing quite quickly enough for him to punish you. I think like Nick Foles could have punished you because he's a veteran that's seen this before. I think the rookie's still a little slow, still developing, and you can punish him for that, and that's going to be how you win against this Jets team and slow down their offense.
Yeah, he's not bad though for a rookie. This will be his 7th game.
No, he can throw.
Yeah, that was the next question. Thoughts on Darnold? There's a lot of young quarterbacks. It's like a generation shift. It feels like.
I love it.
Yeah, it's
really exciting.
It's also extremely frustrating, though, because you think of how many times the Vikings have tried to actually draft and develop their own quarterback, and it never works. But I'll take Cousins. On the East Coast, it's hard to win on the East Coast, but Cousins is used to all that aggressive. Yeah. So.
I think, like Darnold can definitely make a throw. He can stand in the pocket. He has the ability, is I guess what I'll call it, like a physical ability to throw a ball where he wants to throw it and place it and score on you that way. And I think it's a matter of making him make the wrong decisions. So what you need is a defense that disguises its coverages and makes the quarterback's pre-snap read wrong. Which, boy, we kind of like wrote the book on that, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty optimistic about it.
How would you rate him with the other with Allen and Rosen if you had to rank them 1, 2, 3? Not obviously
I'd
not
put him
the luxury of seeing him play the Vikings.
Yeah, among all the rookies, I put him 3rd below Mayfield and Rosen. I think Allen's a catastrophe. He's just absolutely not ready to play. Now he's hurt, which really sucks, but he's just not ready to play. And I think Darnold is closer to Rosen and Mayfield than he is to Allen, but I would put him 3rd among that group.
And he is before he left with injury, he kicked the Vikings' ass.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he hurdled Anthony Barr. He's a jock, man. We always do that.
You guys think?
And the Jets have a horrible slot coverage issue again.
So. That's a good segue for the question too. Was do you think that they're gonna commit to shutting down Thielen for once, or do you think
I don't know how
structural problem?
They don't have the players to do it because they have Buster Skrine is their chief slot corner. He's had a really bad season so far. He's been really struggling. Their best corner is Mo Claiborne. I don't think Claiborne has played in the slot. I'm looking that up right now. But it's the same problem. They do have a pretty good secondary. Maybe they would just have Jamal Adams as a good safety that could maybe shadow Thielen and keep up. Because he's a pretty athletic safety, although he's a little bit more of a box safety. He's more of a Palomalu than an Ed Reed. But maybe you could have something like that, or you could bracket coverage with Marcus May, who's been, who's a good young safety, and they could really kind of sell out but then you're leaving Morris Claiborne one-on-one with Stephon Diggs, and I don't think that's a winning proposition either. So, like, I was sitting there like, okay, I'm Todd Bowles. How do I do this? And honestly, I don't know if I think if you're really picking your poison unless you have, like, a shutdown slot corner and a shutdown outside corner. Not a lot of teams have that.
Yeah, and Dalvin Cook coming back. You officially got me excited for the Vikings again. I don't know how you did it.
Oh, no. I didn't mean to do that.
They'll take this back.
Yeah, Claiborne doesn't play in the slot, and he's by far their best corner. So I don't they're not going to be able to put a good corner on Thielen. They'll either have to put a safety on him again, which Thielen wins, or a bad slot corner, which Thielen wins.
Oh,
or double cover him, which then
you don't
someone else
have him
wins.
on the prediction segment as over and under on Thielen. You're using Diggs, huh? Pretty sneaky.
That's a new wrinkle. What do you guys make of this Thielen best in the NFL? Like Channel 9 did some. I watched it. Talked about his where he grew up and all that.
You didn't read my story for the Sports Post. I did one on him too on Monday. I just went down the wire, all the reasons why he's the secrets to his success, and it's just it's pretty basic stuff, but it's the fact that he's sneaky fast, he's strong, he's smart, the route running.
According the guy on Fox before the game said Thielen wasn't an athletic type. I'm like, what are you talking about?
He's not. He said he's not. Wow,
he runs a 4.4. He's like 6.
He's like 6'2", and he runs by you and then bodies you. Like, he's a jog.
No, he's not athletic though.
Not athletic, tight.
He's tight. There you go.
Shoulder. He's got a chip on his shoulder because he was. People give all the writers grief for mentioning $500 scholarship from MSU Mankato and undrafted and didn't get invited to the combine, blah, 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 blah. Well, the guy just took all that and just started working his tail off and looked at and figured out what he did well and has just gotten even better at it and made himself. He's an athlete. He started out on special teams, scoring touchdowns there, but making plays
blocking
there.
Punts.
Got it in the lineup. And he just, by sheer will and want to, that he is where he is, and he doesn't show any signs of letting up because he just loves what he does. The fact that he's constantly laying out whenever the opportunity is there, and no pass is uncatchable. These are just qualities you'd want every wide receiver in the league to have, and he's just got them.
I think he's unquestionably part of the elite tier, right?
Okay.
He's in there. I would struggle to be like, he's better than Julio Jones. Like, Julio's still Julio. And Antonio Brown and Tyreek Hill, who's also, blowing up and taking the league by storm. Like, I struggle to put him above those players, but I'll put him in the same group.
Yeah. Diggs too.
He's 6th in the league by yards per route run, which in my opinion is the best wide receiver stat, which Julio Jones is leading that by a huge margin.
Yards by outrun, what?
Yards per route run. It's just yards per snap where you were running.
Where does Diggs fall on that list?
Diggs is also not. He's 22nd, which is pretty good. So better than, he's surrounded by Demaryius Thomas and Willie Snead and Jarvis Landry. Those are good wide receivers. He's last year he was leading the league in this category at this juncture.
Diggs was.
Diggs was, yeah.
Okay. So
a much more reasonable, yet still very good season for him.
I just had a mental image of Adam Thielen leaving games on a rascal scooter because he's so unathletic. He can't do anything. It has to be one of the worst comments. The guy does backflips while running full speed to catch a ball thrown behind him. I think he's pretty
If
athletic.
you want to talk about unathletic receivers, talk about Kyle Rudolph or David Morgan.
Yeah.
Or Treadwell.
Yeah. So where we're at with predictions, I do believe that I am leading at least one aspect of it, which is a first this far into the season, and I am smiling while talking, if you can't tell the difference.
Yeah, so with the points predictions, you guys were really close. Joe Johnson, I think you nailed the Vikings. You had 27-6. It was 27-17. But on the whole, you missed by 11 points, while Overly missed by 7 because the Cardinals scored more points than he thought they would.
Yeah.
So Oberle pulled away a little, but it's still only a 20-point lead, and there's a lot of football left to be played. So it's still very much anyone's game.
That's still smiling, Joe?
I don't know what to call this. It's a smile frown. Half and half. Because I think, had Kirk Cousins for the over, and it was 10.5 yards, right?
It was he got 14 yards rushing?
Yeah.
These are two different prediction segments, and then the first one, you lost ground. Okay, so let's emphasize that.
Yeah.
And now go on to the other.
Yeah, now the over-under.
So what's your score prediction?
My score prediction is the Vikings 24, the Jets 13.
I got 24-20.
Nice. We keep doing these similar Viking scores, different. I have instant regret.
Yeah, what you did that.
It's not dissimilar to last week.
Oh yeah, you did that in the Rams game. You were only a point off of each other with what the Vikings were to score.
Right.
Ooh.
Now you're exactly on each other. Okay.
Yeah.
No, there's a 7-point difference here.
Yeah.
But not
Yeah. It's going to be up to how much the Rams or the Jets score, not the Vikings. So last week with our over/unders, I and Joe Johnson got it right. I had Thielen getting a 100-yard game, which was correct. And Joe Johnson, you had 10.5 rushing yards for Kirk Cousins. I think he got like 14. The other one was 21.5 pressures allowed. They only allowed 12. Really nice game, actually, in terms of pass blocking, as much as, Rashad Hill got maligned, and there was like, the strip sack fumble again, and there were a couple sacks. Kirk Cousins was actually relatively clean. He was 12 pressured snaps is pretty good. We did get a whole bunch of submissions, too. We had on the under for pressures, which was correct, and everybody who submitted said the Vikings would win, so that's cool. But on the pressures under, we had Love D Hustle, PP26 number 1, Smith Tyler J, Eye of the Fink, and, of course, my lovely parents. With me on the Thielen over, Thielen getting a 100-yard game, was MJS 3238, and a user whose name I will pronounce as Get Fugged.
I was waiting for something like that.
Yeah. And the Cousins over was you, Joe Johnson, Drew Christians 18, The Real Forno, Nemok 7, a bunch of friends of the show in this one, Cooper Mac 2, and Luft Krieger, David Stefano, who is on the Climbing Pocket Network. And
those guys should be ashamed
sorry,
of themselves.
Overly, you were wrong on the Thielen under.
It was indeed, but I was pleased since I have him on 2 of my fantasy teams.
Ugh.
Yeah, so you hedged.
Yeah, hedged.
So for the gnome, that's a lot of people entered in the gnome here. It goes to Drew Christians 18.
There it is.
Hit up the Purple PTSD account, send a DM, and we'll get your information so we can send you a gnome.
Awesome. What are the this week's? I know I'm gonna get I think I go last, so I have no.
You go last because
control.
you're leading.
Yeah.
You were at 3 and 2, and Oberle and I are at 2 and 3. So the first one is Diggs.
Didn't you? I thought so. You eliminated the ties, right? So
for the tie for the Packers tie, I just said everyone was right.
Okay, so shouldn't we have 6 games then?
We skipped a week. We skipped the Rams week.
Oh,
so we didn't get a show off.
All right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. The Packers week, both Joes got it right, and I did not get a point. That's how the Packers week went.
So
for the Jets game, I do have Diggs over under 6.5 catches, 75.5 yards. And remember, he has to hit the over. He has to hit over on both categories. If he's over one and under the other, that's an under.
Really? So if you say under, he only has to hit one.
Right. He could get 5 catches for 120 yards, and that would be the under.
Really? I didn't realize that. Interesting.
So then the second one is the defense forcing over under 1.5 turnovers. Those can be interceptions, fumbles, weird special teams plays, anything. As long as they're turnovers, 1.5. And Brian O'Neill over under 2.5 pressures, which is interesting because we still aren't sure if he's going to start.
Ooh. I'm so
Reef
glad
didn't practice though, so it's looking like Reef's going to sit out again.
But it's 2.5, not 3.5 pressures.
Yeah.
Oh, it's what I texted you. Did I text you 3.5?
Yes, you did.
Okay, then it's 3.5 pressures.
Okay. Well, I thought long and hard. I don't know enough about these pressures. I don't have a feel for them, I should say. And I thought long and hard about the Diggs one, and I just I haven't seen enough. And what you've just explained about the Jets defense makes me feel even better that I'm going to take the over on the sacks or the turnovers because the Jets are the they cause a lot, or they bring a lot of turnovers. The defense causes a lot of them, which is scary for our quarterback. But they also have given them up at 2 a game. They got 12 on the season, so in 6 games. So I think one more to hold that, and I'll be in the money. So that's what I'm going with. Kind of risky.
Right.
Kind of risky going for turnovers.
By the way, just for context of Brian O'Neill, he played most of the Buffalo game, and he played the whole Arizona game, which were like kind of a whole game's worth of snaps. And he gave up 4 pressures in the Buffalo game and 2 pressures in the Arizona game.
Wow.
The over-under is 3.5.
So you're up next, I think, right?
Yep.
I am. And I believe in this kid. I'm taking the O'Neill under.
Wow.
Nice.
So mine falls to Diggs. And
Unless you want to contest one of us.
So yeah, I could do that. I'll take Diggs.
Like Oberle did.
I think he'll have, but can I do under on catches and over on yards?
That would just be the under.
That would be the under.
Okay. Oh, okay.
You'd then be taking any situation where he gets the under.
Oh,
and of course I'm calling the Vikings to win in case you couldn't tell, by the way.
I'll take the over.
On Diggs?
Yeah.
There it is.
It's going to be
All right.
Don't feel great about that one, but I went third.
We're
I'll
a bunch
take
of
it.
optimistic guys.
You got to be.
I'm the first one to take an under, I think, this year when I took it last week on Thielen.
No, I took some unders. I thought we'd get our butts kicked in the Eagles game.
Oh, that's right.
I've been a hater.
Yeah, you did.
Pragmatic. Well, that has been the Purple Journal podcast. Listen to the Purple Territory Network. We're doing all sorts of cool stuff. We're doing morning shows this Friday. Keep an eye out on next week. We might have some scheduling changes, but we'll figure it out. We're going to be doing the first half of the game again this Sunday if people want to stream along and ask us questions or just listen to inane conversations. Or check out the live chat, too. That's where you can ask us questions live on the air. That'll be on Purple PTSD and on Vikings Territory as well. But thanks for listening. This has been the Purple Journal podcast. Skol!